So we want to teach you how to get to where you can do things where you're not overwhelmed, or if you are, you know how to handle it, and where you can get to a place of motivation and certainty and lower demand.
You're listening to the Decluttering Club Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Mueller, and it's my mission to equip women to declutter their homes, their time, and their lives so that they can cherish what truly matters.
So for this episode of the podcast, we're going to share with you a bonus training that I recently did during the Organize Like a Boss Challenge. And it's about overwhelm and about how you can conquer overwhelm during decluttering, or let's say before you start to declutter, but also in really like literally any area of your life. Now, I got this idea originally from Layla Hormozi. So I want to give credit where credit is due. She teaches this idea, but I have applied it to decluttering and to the rest of your life. So I thought this was super important that we wanted to preserve this on the podcast. So that's what you're going to get during this episode number 49 of the podcast. Okay, I believe we are we live on Facebook? We're almost live on Facebook. Here we go. Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. Sarah Mueller here with the Decluttering Club, and I have your bonus training. You know, a couple days ago, I shared, I promised you all a bonus training, and I asked you to weigh in and vote for, what is the topic that you would love some help on. And we had a resounding winner. We had a resounding winner with 299 votes. You all wanted to hear about how to start decluttering when you are overwhelmed, right? Anyone overwhelmed ever? Probably, right? That's why you're here, because you need help. And so you are in the right place. Amazing. Okay, let me just make sure that, okay, we're good to go. Yes, we're live. All right, so we're going to talk about how to start decluttering when you are overwhelmed. Now, I'm going to share my screen here. This can cooperate. I have my iPad, my trusty iPad here, and I'm going to do my best to draw this out for you so that you have a little bit of a different view. All right, so let's do this. Go over here. All right, so hopefully you can see this. And if you are watching live, let me know if you can see this. We're going to talk about overwhelm. And I love this idea because overwhelm can be broken down into two components, right? So when you are overwhelmed, and this applies to decluttering, this applies to, anything that you want to get done, whether it's, like cleaning up your kitchen or, I don't know, applying for a new job or planning a vacation or having a hard conversation, right? These two things are at work here, okay? And so it's like an equation. We can look at it like an equation. Okay, so on the left, you can see we have demand, right? So if you have very high demand, right? If your demand is very high and if your certainty is very low, that is going to equal overwhelm. Okay, and what does that look like? So when I say high demand, I mean things like this has to be done now, right? Now, have you ever thought that? Like we need to get this done right now. Like ideally it should have been done yesterday. That's high demand, okay? It can also look like things like I need to do the whole garage, right? Or the whole basement, or I have 100 boxes, okay? So it's like the whole mess. All right, that is very high demand, okay? Maybe it's like we got other things going on, right? So it is, we have to declutter and also we have to do these 10 other things. That's high demand, okay? Now, high demand on its own does not create overwhelm, right? This is very interesting. You may have had times in your life where you had high demand, but you were not overwhelmed. And that was probably because of the certainty aspect. So if you have low certainty plus high demand, that's when you get overwhelmed. So what does low certainty look like? Low certainty looks like a lot of open questions, okay? And those questions may look like, what'll I do if, or should I donate this? Should I sell this? Should I keep this? The questions may look like, will I regret this later? Okay, if you have a million questions, you have very low certainty. Okay, and so that is going to bring down the certainty factor. Low certainty also looks like, I don't really know when I'm going to do this. Okay, when. If you haven't decided when, if you're like, I'll just fit it in, I'm just going to squeeze it in, low certainty. Okay, so now that we know what these two elements of the equation look like, now I'm going to show you how you can change this, okay? Because again, now we've gotten really specific and clear. We've defined overwhelm like a mathematical equation. Now we can manipulate. Now we can move the elements here, okay? So this is what this looks like. Okay, we want to lower our demand, right? Remember, high demand results in uncertainty. If we lower that down, now our overwhelm is going to lessen or go away. So how do we lower demand? Well, those of you who have been through OLAB before, you know some of these answers, right? One way to lower demand is to do what we call zooming in, okay? Zoom in, right? We're not looking at the whole garage. We're going to look at one box. We're not looking at the whole house. We're looking at one cupboard at a time. Zooming in. That will lower your demand. Another way, a beautiful way to lower your demand is to extend out your time horizon. So instead of it having to be done now or in, 3 days, what if you gave yourself a month, right? More time will lower the demand. You have more time to do this. Now, if you have spent 10 years, 20 years, or longer letting things pile up in your house and like letting the clutter accumulate, it probably makes sense that you're not going to clean it up. You're not going to declutter in a tiny fraction of that time. So give yourself more time. Now, it doesn't mean that we just push it off. It doesn't mean that we forget about it, but it means we extend the time that we have to work on it. Okay, more time. Lowering the demand could also look like getting some help, right? Get help. If you don't have to do it all yourself, now the demand on you is less. You could cut that demand in half if you recruit some help, and that help could be from friends and family. Maybe you pay somebody, maybe you hire, a service, whatever. But getting help on board will lower that demand. Okay, so that's how you can do that. Then those are just some ideas. Now, the other side of the equation over here is certainty, right? So if we want to raise our certainty, here are some things we can do. First of all, we got to answer those questions, okay? Answer questions. So every time your brain is like, should I sell this or not? We want to decide. Don't let those questions hang out in your brain. They're taking up space in your brain and they're stopping you from moving forward. You got to answer those questions. And we will get into more of this. We'll get into so much more of this next week during the challenge. But I just want to let you know, every time you have a question pop up, you want to answer that question. Okay, so you want to answer that. Am I going to donate things? Am I going to keep things? If you know the answer to those questions, your overwhelm will improve. Okay, you want to answer those questions. Other ways to increase certainty. You could decide when you're going to do this. If you know when, right? Not just like, oh, I will squeeze it in. That feels really terrible. But if it's like, I am spending, I'm dedicating this weekend, I'm going to set aside 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, right? Decide when. Now, you have to decide, and then you got to follow through, and we can talk about that as well, right? If you just decide and then blow it off, that's no good. But if you decide, yes, I'm going to put forth the time whenever I pick, that means maybe I'm going to say no to something else. That means maybe I'm going to get up early or I'm going to go to bed on time or whatever. But if you know when, now your certainty is going up. Do you see how that works? Oh my goodness, this is so amazing. So those are just a few of the ways, right? And now we can come, and now we're not overwhelmed anymore, right? Now we are, here's a good word, motivated, right? Now, if you have more time, maybe you've got some help, you've zoomed in, right? Here's another way to increase your certainty. Make a plan. Don't just dive in and start emptying the cupboards. That is not recommended. You will just end up more overwhelmed, right? But if you have a plan, now you can follow your plan. And now, instead of being overwhelmed, now you are motivated. All right. I'm going to stop my share here. Stop. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that is a super quick bonus training for you all that you can use, and you can use this anytime you get overwhelmed. All right, keep this in your back pocket. Maybe make a little note, stick it on the fridge, stick it on your bulletin board, because this is available to you whenever you're overwhelmed. You can ask yourself, is this really high demand? Is it low certainty? How can I increase my certainty? How can I lower my demand, right? And now we have like levers we can push and pull, and we can change how we feel. And when we can change how we feel, we can change what we do. Okay. This is why sometimes you may have found yourself like in panic cleaning mode, right? You can do things without changing how you feel. You can, but it's typically like very painful, very stressful, and you may not like the result that you get at the end of the day, right? That looks like panic cleaning. You're like, oh my goodness, people are coming over. We got to clean. Right. And so instead of thoughtfully decluttering and cleaning up and organizing and taking your time, you just stuff things in bedrooms, and you put the dirty dishes in the oven, and you put it all behind closed doors, but you haven't really fixed the problem. So your house might look what you consider presentable, but now you've actually got a bigger mess to deal with, right? And that doesn't serve anybody. So we want to teach you how to get to where you can do things where you're not overwhelmed, or if you are, you know how to handle it, and where you can get to a place of motivation and certainty and lower demand, right? And that is what we do around here, okay? If you're watching me on this video, either live or on the replay, drop it hashtag imperfect action. Okay, imperfect action is one of our core values, right? And what that means is we do things even when it's not just so. Right? A lot of you all are perfectionists, and you are waiting for the time to be right. You're waiting for the stars to align so that everything works out perfectly. And I'm telling you, that does not happen. That's just not going to happen. So we are all about imperfect action around here. We get moving, we get going, we try things out, we see what works and what doesn't. We tweak, we iterate from there. That's how we get a whole bunch of stuff done. Okay, that is what next week is going to be all about. You guys are going to love it. We're going to have an amazing time in here inside the Oil Up Challenge. Let me know how this goes. Let me know, how are you going to lower your demand and raise your certainty? I want to know. This is your homework. Let me know in the comments, what are the things that you're going to do to move these levers now that you know that they exist? They're available to you. You can take that steering wheel and drive off in a different direction. All right, I'll see you later. Take care, everyone.
That's all we have for you today. If you enjoyed this podcast, would you leave us a review? It would really help us get the word out. To start your decluttering journey, go to thedeclutteringclub.com. That is declutteringclub.com. We'll see you next time.